Yeah, but it depends who's using it. And in that, I have no problem.
I understand that you have a short time, so I'll give you a summary of all of the history that happened here, and if you have any questions at the end, just by all means ask me. I can add more information. Now, the building that you're in is part of Independence National Historical Park. It's also still an operating church, so it's unique among those historical buildings. And that's because the church that was founded here in 1695 has continued to the present day. So the congregation still owns it. Now, the Revolutionary era history is very connected to the most famous historical building here in Philadelphia, Independence Hall. Virtually everybody who worked on both the Declaration of Independence and then later the United States Constitution was in this building. And that's because back then, the ministers at this church were the chaplains to the Continental Congress and the Constitutional Convention. Now, for 10 years, Philadelphia was also the capital of the United States. That was during the presidency of George Washington and John Adams. George Washington was a member here the whole time that he was president. John Adams also attended, but much more irregularly. Now, if you guys walk through later, you'll notice that some of the pews have plaques on them. That's because we literally know where certain historical figures sat, because in the Revolutionary era, if you were a member, you demonstrated your commitment to the church by renting your pew space. So for example, right across from me, number 70 was Benjamin Franklin's spot. And further in front, you see a larger pew that was actually occupied by both Washington and Adams when they were presidents. There are also more signers of both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution buried on this church's property than anywhere else in the United States by far. 7 signers of the Declaration, 5 of the Constitution. This church is also significant in American religious history. This was founded as the Church of England, and Church of England clergy had to take loyalty oaths to the king because the king was the head of the church. That was obviously a problem in Revolutionary era America. So after the Revolution, the Church of England here was reorganized, and that reorganization took place in this building, and the minister who had been the chaplain of the Continental Congress and the Constitutional Convention, who had been the pastor while Washington was here, he became the first national head of that new church. That man, while Washington was still a member of the church and president, and while Washington actually had enslaved people in his home at 6th and Market, ordained in this building the first African American who was ordained in any Christian tradition in North America. Now, in addition to those elements of religious history that occurred here, the building itself is architecturally significant. This building is older than Independence Hall, and the design and construction team that built this building went on to work on Independence Hall, so the influence moves from here to there. When the steeple was finished, the tower that you walk through to get into this larger room, it was the tallest building in the 13 colonies of any kind, period. That was in 1754. Ben Franklin is the man who raised the money to finish it. It kept that tallest title for 56 years, until 1810. So this was actually, for example, the tallest building in America during the entire lifetime of George Washington. And I'll mention 2 more things. You guys may have seen, or may be going to see, the Liberty Bell. Up in that steeple, there are 8 bells that are as old as the Liberty Bell, that were all made at the same foundry in England where the Liberty Bell was made, and that were brought over here at basically the same time. They rang at the same times. One of them is literally a twin of the Liberty Bell. It was made to exactly the same specifications at the same place. And ours never cracked. So you wonder what the Liberty Bell would have sounded like before that famous crack occurred. The best way to answer that question would be to be here on a day when we're ringing that bell, and then you would know. And finally, the item right behind you, the wooden piece that kind of looks like a Hershey kiss at the top, is one of the oldest religious objects in the United States that is still regularly used. It's here because William Penn, the founder of the colony of Pennsylvania, was baptized from that font when he was a baby in London. And it was shipped to North America in 1697 when this church was 2 years old. But because it came from Europe, it was very old when it arrived here. Inside the wooden structure is a stone bowl on a stone support, and those are actually medieval. They were made in the 1400s, so that object is older than Christopher Columbus's first trip to this whole part of the world. So, in summary, the building that you're in is historic for a lot of significant and overlapping reasons, and we always love sharing those reasons with visitors. So, thank you guys for coming. Again, you're welcome to look around, take pictures, sit in the historic pews if you want, and if you do have any other questions about anything, please ask me.
Thank you very much.